The wheel of time turns, and ages come and pass, leaving memories that become legend. Legend fades to myth, and even myth is long forgotten when the age that gave it birth comes again. Today's video will be spoiler-free until the final segment, Secret History. Before then, we will only explore aspects of Aiel culture and recent history. However, if you wish to know nothing, click away now and go read the books for yourself. Welcome back to the strangest places in the Wheel of Time. In our last episode, we ventured far across the Aerith Ocean to explore the wilds of Shan-Chan and delved into its origins, culture, and the people who now call it home. Today, we will be turning the globe once more to a harsh and unforgiving landscape filled with venomous snakes, polyamorous red-haired savages, and an ancient magical city cloaked in mist. Today, I present to you the Aiel Waste, the strangest places in the Wheel of Time. Located between the Westlands and Shara, and below the Great Blight, the Aiel Waste is a vast desert of dry, cracked clay and sand. Separating the waste in the west is the Spine of the World, or the Dragon Wall, as it is known by the natives. This stretch of mountains is impassable except for a few paths that slice through its length. The greatest of these being the Jungai Pass, located to the east of Rhuidean, and the Nima Pass, located to the east of Shinar. Within the Dragon Wall itself are many Ogier steadings that have remained verdant even through the scorching days and freezing nights of the desert. To the far north, the Mountains of Doom continue across the top of the continent all the way to Shara, separating the Waste from the Great Blight. To the far east of the Waste lies the Great Rift and the Cliffs of Dawn, which separate the Waste from the dark land of Shara. The cliffs reach heights of up to 500 feet, and in only 6 places can they be scaled. At the southern end of the cliffs begins the Great Rift, a massive canyon unscalable by any human. It is said that those who try to enter Shara are never seen again. Traveling further through the Waste and far to the south of the Aiel lands lies the Termul, a vast expanse of harsh desert home to no human, plant, or animal. The hot sun there saps any and all water from those who may enter it. With no rivers or springs to provide water, even the Aiel do not cross into this land. Although a harsh and unforgiving place, the Waste often boasts a landscape of spectacular scenery. Throughout the land, the hearts of dead volcanoes mark the terrain. Spires of yellow-orange rock reach for the heavens, and vast fissures cut deep into the depths of the earth. At sunset, the sky becomes ablaze with vibrant yellows, pinks, purples, and reds. Occasionally, there are small oases within the Waste, found in fissures and between rock formations. These areas are places the Aiel have made homes, and are more suitable for growing a small amount of crops. Another notable feature is the Silk Path. Running almost straight from the Jungai Pass to the Cliffs of Dawn, the Silk Path is a footpath known for its trade with Shara for silk. This is an extremely obvious inspiration of the Silk Road that ran from China to Europe before the 1500s when Europeans began producing their own silk products. The Waste is largely reminiscent of the Great Basin Desert located in the western United States. Unlike the Sahara, Gobi, Arab deserts, and the Australian bush, the Waste is not covered so much with sand, but in cracked clay, as we can see in various places such as Nevada and Utah. The Great Rift, for example, is heavily inspired by the Grand Canyon of Arizona. Even the Dragon Wall can be lined up with the Sierra Nevada mountain range in California to the west and the Rocky Mountains to the east. Robert Jordan was writing a fantasy series, but with a distinctly American lens. As Jordan looked to investigate the way cultures merge and change over time, he pulled much inspiration from the world he saw around him. The classic saying, "America is a melting pot," can clearly be seen in his work, especially with the development and mixing of cultures after the breaking of the world. The geography of the Waste is not for the faint of heart. And if you should find yourself there someday, know that you will probably die soon, but at least you can experience some of the beauty it holds. being a desert, fauna and flora are scarce. However, the region is home to a small ecosystem. Among these creatures, we find the blood snake, a large serpent reaching lengths of up to 9 feet long. Although the blood snake can strangle you, you should be more worried about its bite, which causes blood clots and death. With this in mind, the blood snake is rather easy to catch and can be enjoyed in soup or with bread. A smaller cousin to the blood snake is the two-step. This small brown snake has a venom so deadly it can kill a person before they have time to take 2 steps. It is a custom in the Waste to shake out one's boots before putting them on, like some people do here in the American West or Australia looking for scorpions. In addition to the snakes, there is the gara, a large poisonous lizard with a deadly bite. However, if you are fast enough to catch one, you can enjoy it over an open fire. I hear that its meat tastes like chicken. But if chicken lizard isn't your thing, you can sit down with a hearty bowl of squirming motai, a fat white grub that is both sweet and crunchy. The Waste is also home to the sorta, a large rat-like animal. If you catch one, though, you might be severely disappointed, as its flesh is so rank that cats seldom eat the ones they kill. Aside from these creatures, the Waste also harbors a small array of crops. Among those are the tomat, picara, zamai, and algode. Many of these crops resemble those of our own world, although shrunken and hardened for life within the desert. Clearly, the Waste forges and reshapes any life that enters it. Although some plants and animals have been able to survive, arguably none have adapted to life within the Waste better than the Aiel people themselves. Since the dawn of the Third Age, the Aiel have called the Waste home. The Aiel are a mysterious folk with strange customs to the people of the Westlands. Many believe them to be barbarians who only wish to pillage and plunder. In reality, their customs are a lot more complicated. At first glance, the Aiel exist in shocking contrast to their western neighbors. Having fair skin and redder blonde hair, the Aiel often reach heights of 6 feet or taller, putting them above most Westlanders. Made from the algoda plant, the Aiel wear thin, breathable tunics and pants that have been dyed with the clay of the Waste so they may blend in with their environments. Around their necks, each Aiel wears a black hood known as a shufa. When an Aiel is ready to kill, they raise their shufa around their head, leaving only their eyes visible. Over the 3,000 years they have lived within the Waste, the Aiel have become hardened by the harshness of the desert. The Aiel call the Waste the Threefold Land for the 3 gifts their country gives them. 1. A shaping stone to make them. 2. A testing ground to prove their worth. And 3. A punishment for their sins. With these gifts, the Aiel have become deadly warriors, feared by the rest of the world. You see, 30 years before the start of the books was the Aiel War. This campaign between the Kingdom of Rhuidean against a united Aiel front lasted for over 2 years. The conflict arose when the king of Rhuidean, Damodred, cut down the chora tree known as Avendoraldera to craft a new throne. The tree, given to the country by the Aiel people nearly 500 years before, was seen as a pact of peace between the two peoples. In Aiel culture, chora trees hold special significance. This resulted in a break of truce. The Aiel came in vast droves over the spine of the world, looting and pillaging the countryside. The war came to an end with the death of King Laman and the subsequent retreat of the Aiel back over the Dragon Wall. Although the death of the king was the overall goal of the war for the Aiel, they also believed that when conquering a nation, they had a right to 1/5 of the supplies within Rhuidean, sending many goods back over the Dragon Wall to their holds and leaving the countryside barren. Since then, the Aiel have been seen as monsters by the Rhuidean and much of the rest of the world. Although dangerous, the Aiel are far from monsters, as their hierarchy and society is far more complex than the feudal system employed by the Westland countries. Within Aiel culture, honor and respect for oneself and others is of the utmost priority. The Aiel follow the system of jie to, coming from the Old Tongue meaning honor and obligation. Jie to runs through the heart of their beliefs. When trying to understand the Aiel, you must first understand jie to. At its most basic, ji represents honor and to represents obligation. Each Aiel exists within a balance of ji and to of the other Aiel around them. For example, if in a battle one Aiel disarms another Aiel without killing or harming them, that person has gained immense ji, and the loser has garnered immense to. In order to rebalance the scales, the captured Aiel will become a Gai Shane, in which that person will don themselves in white and lay down their spears to serve the one they owe to for a year and a day. Essentially, prisoners of Aiel War become indentured servants who are looked down on in society. Not all to must be forgiven in this way, but these ideals show how the Aiel culture differs substantially from that of the Westlands. The Aiel are broken up into 12 clans, led by a male clan chief. Each clan is divided up into septs, with each paying allegiance to their clan. Septs are led by the roof mistress and are demarcated by holds. When announcing themselves, Aiel announce their sept and then clan. For example, one could say they are Omi of the Black Cliff sept of the Nakai Aiel. The terms clan and sept come directly from Scottish and later Irish culture and more or less remain unchanged within the text. The term sept derives from the Gaelic word sloicht, meaning seed or progeny, or possibly the Latin word septum, meaning enclosure or fold. A Scottish clan was traditionally led by the clan chief, who ruled over a number of other families or septs. Essentially, these terms can be equated with lords, barons, dukes, and their vassal families. Between clans, blood feuds can sometimes be found if one clan is owed to another. These conflicts go above petty squabbles for food and water and are typically the result of some further slight or disrespect. Aside from clans and septs, there are also Aiel societies which any Aiel may join. Even clans that have an established blood feud can exist together within an Aiel society. The most infamous are the Fairderis Mai, or Maidens of the Spear. Another anomaly of the Aiel is their refusal to use swords, as they are not Aiel. In Fairderis Mai, women warriors wed themselves to their spears and are forbidden from marriage. If they wish to marry, they must revoke their society and leave Fairderis Mai. However, these are not the only ways the Aiel are linked. At the top of society, along with clan chiefs and roof mistresses, are the Wise Ones. This group, composed of Aiel women, hold the knowledge and truth of the Aiel within their hearts. Some say they are witches, and others call them dreamwalkers. Each sept is home to at least one Wise One, but typically more. Unlike the Aes Sedai, the ranks of the Wise Ones are not broken down by who is the more powerful. Some Wise Ones can neither channel the One power or walk in dreams and yet hold more authority over those who do. Each Wise One aims to keep a peace between Aiel clans for the prosperity and preservation of their people. Lastly, the strangest aspect of Aiel culture is their practice of polygamy, or the practice of one man having multiple wives. This seems to only relate to men and not the other way around. There is no evidence of an Aiel woman having multiple husbands, as women within Aiel society are required to propose to men, and thus this would prevent multiple men from going after one woman. The wives of a single Aiel man are known as First Sisters, similar to that of traditional Mormonism found in the United States. Some argue that this polygamy is a result of the turnover of lives within Aiel society. One man being allowed to have multiple wives ensures that their population will persevere even in times of war. However, even with this in mind, this practice further alienates the Aiel from the rest of the world. Robert Jordan took inspiration from many real-world cultures when crafting the Aiel. In a 2002 interview with the 13th Depository, Robert Jordan, in regard to his inspirations for the Aiel, stated, "In my mind, they contain some elements of the Apache, some of the Zulu, and some of the Bedouin, and some elements of my own, including that I rather liked the fact of making the desert dwellers blue-eyed and fair instead of the usual dark-eyed, dark-complexioned people of the desert." These inspirations are very clearly seen within the story. Both the Apache and Zulu people exemplify aspects of Aiel culture in regard to spear usage, honor and obligation, and tribal structure. The Bedouin term is largely vague and describes those tribes of nomadic people living in the deserts of the Middle East. From their clothing to their ability to survive in harsh climates, the Bedouin were also the inspirations for the Fremen of Frank Herbert's 1965 sci-fi classic, Dune. The similarities between the Aiel and the Fremen are numerous. However, looking deeper, I feel as there are many more influences for the Aiel. In particular, the relationship between the Westlands and the Aiel is very reminiscent of the relationship between Germanic tribes of Northern and Western Europe and the Roman Empire. Back in the day, thousands of years ago, the Roman Empire wrote off any Germanic clan as barbarians. As these groups were able to fend off their expansion, the Romans believed these pagans to be evil and mysterious. Many aspects of Germanic culture were banned in Roman territories, and even at one time it was illegal to make or bring sausages into Roman lands. In addition, the Aiel draw further inspiration from the Pict people known today as the Scottish. Many Game of Thrones fans, as well as amateur historians, are familiar with Hadrian's Wall, built in 122 AD, which stretched across the Isle of Great Britain to separate the Roman Empire from the Pict savages. With all of these aspects in mind, I think it is clear Robert Jordan pulled from many more cultures than we might initially think. If you wish to remain spoiler-free for the fourth book of the Wheel of Time, The Shadow Rising, click off now. In the hot sun of the desert, Rhuidean remains shadowed by fog. Very literally clouded in mystery, the city is only visited by Aiel clan chiefs and apprentice wise ones, where the full history of the Aiel is revealed to them. Those Aiel men who would be clan chiefs are allowed to enter Rhuidean only once and are never permitted to enter again. However, the Aiel wise ones are allowed to journey into Rhuidean twice. The actual city is filled with massive palaces and pristine streets that remain unfinished. The fog made an enormous hollow dome hiding the sky, its bubbling inner surface glowing in the pale, sharp blue. Rhuidean was not nearly so big as Tyr or Camelin, but the streets were broad as any he had ever seen, with wide strips of bare dirt down their centers as if trees had grown there once, and great fountains with statues. Huge buildings flanked the streets, odd, flat-sided palaces of marble and crystal and cut glass, ascending hundreds of feet in steps or sheer walls. There was not a small building to be seen, nothing that might have been a simple tavern or an inn or a stable. Only immense palaces with gleaming columns 50 feet thick climbing 100 paces in red or white or blue. And grand towers fluted and spiraled, some piercing the glowing clouds above. However, the city sits unfinished. Somewhere in the past, the builders were ripped from their work and Rhuidean became a holy place. The center of the city boasts a mystery itself. The streets suddenly ended at a great plaza, perhaps as far across as they had walked and surrounded by those palaces of marble and crystal. Startlingly, a tree stood in the huge square, a good 100 feet tall and spreading its thick, leafy limbs over a hide of dusty white paving stones, near what appeared to be a concentration ring of clear, glittering glass columns, thin as needles compared to their height, nearly as much as the trees. Found at the heart of Rhuidean is the great chora tree Avendasora, the tree of life. It is said that Gautam sat beneath Avendasora for 40 years to gain wisdom. The old stories were true. He felt contentment, peace, well-being, even if his feet did not bother him much. He sat down cross-legged nearby. I can believe the stories. Gautam sitting beneath Avendasora for 40 years to gain wisdom, Right now, I can believe. This is a reference to the Buddha Siddhartha Gautama meditating under the Bodhi tree for 49 days gaining wisdom. It becomes clear why the destruction of Avendolordera by King Layman was seen as an act of war. At the heart of a land baked and hardened by the sun lies one of the most majestic trees on the planet. There, under Avendasora, one will feel contented till the end of their days. Throughout the world, none such cities exist stranger and more mysterious than Rhuidean. We have discussed the recent history of the Aiel and the practices found within their culture, but how did these traditions come to be? During the Second Age, the Aiel, known as the Deshane Aiel, were servants of the Aes Sedai, with their name literally translating to people dedicated to peace. This comes as much of a surprise to the Aiel and us readers as the Deshane Aiel were originally pacifists, following the Way of the Leaf, the same set of values followed by the modern-day Tuatha'an. In addition, the Deshane Aiel were the prized servants of the Aes Sedai. In the Shadow Rising, we see that their place in society is far above that of the average person, as a man named Jom collides with the Deshane Aiel and apologizes. "Forgive me, Deshane. I am the one who should be watching where he walks. Let me help you up." After the War of Power, in the early days of the breaking of the world, the remaining female Aes Sedai, held within their keep in the city of Paradisen, forced the Deshane Aiel to swear them an oath, promising to protect the remaining Angriel, Sa'angriel, and Terangriel of their age from the maddening male channelers. They were tasked to move and wander until they found a place of safety where no one could touch the magical artifacts. For 4 generations, the Aiel would wander the broken world, being killed, raped, and enslaved. Carts of Angriel would be lost here and there, and eventually the Deshane Aiel's reserve began to waver. One fateful day, however, a man named Lewin would be the first Deshane to kill, protecting his friend Charlin from bandits. After crushing the first man's skull with a cookpot, Lewin's palm fell on a rounded wood. He jerked it around, pushed it at the snarling man. The man's dark eyes widened, the sword dropped from his grasp. Blood poured from his mouth. Not a stick, a spear. When Lewin's friend Elijah would go to pick up a sword, Lewin would say, "No, Elijah, that is a weapon made to kill people. It has no other use. A spear can put food in the pots, Elijah. A sword cannot. It is forbidden by the way." After this, the Deshane Aiel would fracture into the Aiel and Gen Aiel. The Gen Aiel would maintain the Way of the Leaf. Over the course of thousands of years, the Speared Aiel would fracture into the 12 clans operating during the time of the novels. In this time, the Aiel would continue to wander the world until eventually crossing over into the Waste and making the land their home. In this time, the Gen Aiel would make their way west of the Jungai Pass and begin constructing their holy city Rhuidean. The Gen would never truly adapt to the desert like their cousins, and in a few hundred years they would be dead, leaving Rhuidean unfinished and cloaked in mist. And there Rhuidean would stay, recounting the memories of the Aiel for the wise ones and clan chiefs, so that they may never forget where they came from. The secret history of the Aiel is a tale of hardship. Through their story, we see as they created a home in one of the harshest and strangest places in the Wheel of Time. The Aiel are one of the most complex and interesting fantasy nations ever created. From their history to their modern-day culture, the Aiel never fail to shock or unnerve the Westlanders with their alien customs. However, with Jiaito at the heart of their beliefs, one would be hard-pressed to find an Aiel willing to dispel their beliefs for greed or fortune. In the end, the Aiel Waste is one of the strangest and most unique places in the Wheel of Time.